One of the cases that you had worked on as a lawyer, so encounter, the judgment came when you were in jail. So tell us a bit about that case.
Yeah, that was the Sarkeguda case.
Sarkeguda is in Chhattisgarh.
Yes, Sarkeguda is in the Sukma district of Chhattisgarh, which is in the Bastar region.
Heavily infested with Maoists.
Yes, yes, that's a very heavily Naxal affected area, and the encounter had happened, on the occasion of Bij Pondum, which is a regular harvest festival in which the villagers normally gather in the evening. After the work is done, in the evening they'll gather, and then they will discuss, there are people who are ill or who have died or who have gone away for mirchi, plucking of mirchi in the Andhra Pradesh, or they've crossed the border for that, or they need help for the tilling of their field or something. So on that day, what is decided is, all of us will do some collective labor and till X's field and then till Y's field and then whatever. So it's a sort of, they still have a lot of communitarian principles even in their agriculture. So that was going on, and a whole bunch of security forces probably sort of surrounded them from various sides, and then there was police firing, and several people died on the spot, and a couple of people were killed even the next morning, even after the lights had come and people were aware what's happening. So there, and I must really congratulate two journalists who were there on that spot at that time, who went on the spot once the news came out. The news came out in the usual way. Great achievement, says so and so. And
so the encounter happens, and you said the two journalists at the spot. Who
so there was Aman Sethi of the Hindu, and there was Sudha Bharadwaj of the Indian Express. And I remember that time they were doing very in-depth reporting in Bastar. Today, I mean, it's unfortunate that such in-depth reporting, Hindu no longer has a reporter there. So they actually went down and they actually saw, they're all villagers, all had identity cards, totally unarmed, and 8 of them were children, they were minors. Some of them were school going and they had all the certificates and everything. So the first story was broken by them. Now once the story was broken, there was a very brave young woman there called Kamla Kaka. She actually, and she was helped a lot by an ex-MLA from there, Manish Kunjam. So Manish Kunjam ji and Kamla Kaka and all the people of the village got together. They went to the CM, they went to the president, they went to the governor, various places, and they said, look, this is a fake encounter. And a lot of hue and cry was created, and ultimately the Judicial Inquiry Commission was formed. But now you see, a judicial process is very alien to ordinary people. A notification comes out in the Gazette. Now, you are somewhere miles away in a remote village which is not even accessible, and nobody's told you about it. So,
it's hard enough for people in the city.
So you didn't even know. So the date was, running out, and I just went to check that, have anybody come from there, and I found nobody has come. And then I remember telephoning the secretary, and then telephoning the judicial, the Justice Mr. Agarwal personally, and saying that, look, the news has not reached the village, and we must extend the time.
They need to come there and depose.
Please, please extend the time, because we need to extend the time. And also the ones who have come have not come with all their documents, because they were not aware कि उनको Aadhaar card लाना है, ये लाना है, वो लाना है, and they've just arrived here, and we need to properly brief them and all that. So that case, myself and some of my colleagues from the PUCL, we started doing those affidavits and all that of the Sarkeguda case. Later on, it was basically the Jagdalpur Legal Aid Group which took over that case, and we won the case.
You were in jail.
I was in jail.
So it was proved there was a fake encounter.
Yes. The report said so. The report said, and of course, it forgave the security forces for that panic-stricken, trigger-happy kind of thing. But it also cleared the name of the villagers, which they felt it was very important.
Because they felt that they were wrongly, obviously, charged.
Yes, and it's a very serious.
Maoists, and it's a big thing.
It's a very big thing.
There's always this discussion and conflict, and it's become such a polarized conversation now that if you fight the case like Jagdalpur Legal Aid did, and the way you helped the villagers, you are necessarily now it's painted as ki bhai you are
You're
the
pro-Naxal.
Maoists, or you are not sympathetic enough to security forces who also suffer huge casualties in these areas. Not just because of the Maoists, but because of the conditions that live in. So the one theory is that then that you must support the security forces and this is collateral damage and that's okay. And then the other side is also that it never wants to see the point of view of the state, that they're also in this protracted bloody war and they've been engaged for a while, they lose their loved ones, they lose, for the forces also it's not a beautiful thing to be engaged in this sort of conflict.
No doubt.
So what needs to change for these two sides to sort of just understand what the conflict is?
Let me tell you one thing first of all. The People's Union for Civil Liberties, number one, it has never endorsed violence and nor does it endorse any armed attack on the state. It has never done so. You right from the beginning, I mean, Jayaprakash Narayan ji ke time se dekhiye, at that time also Naxalite movement was going on when Jayaprakash was there. And in fact, at that time, our Mr. What is his name? Ravi, who is the minister?
Ravi Shankar Prasad.
Ravi Shankar Prasad was in the PUCL. Arun Shourie was in the PUCL. Arun Jaitley was in the PUCL. All of them were in the PUCL because that time you were against Congress, right? Remember? So you were all in the PUCL. And today the PUCL are like for you so terrible and so horrible. But let us remember that, you see, what is the understanding of the PUCL? We have on multiple occasions where there has been,
violence from the Maoist side.
Particularly against citizens, villagers, through the PUCL has condemned, the PUCL has written about it. There are so many statements, but that is never highlighted. Because it's very convenient to tar people with one brush. Okay. And so that's the second thing. The third thing one has to realize is, there is the state and there is the citizen. Not just in the case of, I'm not just talking about the case of left-wing extremism or anything for that matter, even in the case of ordinary criminal law, let's put it ordinary criminal law. You go to a high court. How big is the AG office? Bahut bada. There's an AG office, deputy AG office, so much money, so many government panels, so much money is going there to defend the state. Look at the legal aid office. That is for the citizen. How many good lawyers do you have there? How many, I've been in the jail and I have seen people who are there for years together languishing because their legal aid lawyers don't even have, because they're not even paid something reasonable that they can take a mulaqat. During the COVID time, they were not allowed to travel on trains, they could not take a cab and come down and see. I mean, you can't be paid 3,500 or 5,000 rupees.
For our viewers, so that they understand, this department, legal aid, is basically lawyers from the state which are appointed for criminals. So if you can't afford a lawyer,
exactly, and that is a constitutional right. It's in the constitution.
So if you can't afford a lawyer, the state will provide a lawyer, so that you can argue your defense.
So at least give them a level playing field, for God's sake.
So which is a completely ignored department.
Ignored department. So actually, what the PUCL does is that when violence is done by people, the state is there. But when violence is done by the state, who is going to defend the citizen? When there is a riot, when there is a police firing, who is going to defend the citizen? And that is what PUCL is for. It is an organization of citizens. And it is non-funded. It is a non-funded organization. And let me tell you, I mean, though I belong to the Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha, which has been at some point of time a registered political party, but I am no longer part of the Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha, because if you are a post bearer of the PUCL, you cannot belong to any political party. Why? Because we have to fight in the Congress government also, we have to fight in the BJP government also, we have to fight in the BJD government also, in the BSP government also, in the MVA government also. Everywhere there are atrocities against the citizens. There are evictions, there are demolitions, there are lathi charges, there are firings, there are so many things happening all the time. So that is, you need a citizen's body to defend the citizens.
So at least interesting what you're saying, because the principal criticism that why don't you speak out when
but all of you are speaking out anyway,
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that because
the media is speaking, the state is speaking.
The state can take care of itself. It has enough.
No, and it is using that all the time. It is.
But it's the people who don't have it. So
people don't have it. If we hadn't gone out there in Sarkeguda, they wouldn't have been able to clear their name.
They wouldn't have been able to come in front of the judicial. They wouldn't have known.
They wouldn't have
or
known.
They would have been lost in the legal kind of paperwork.
Exactly.
Because I think it's hard. I mean, I can't even imagine for an Adivasi what it must be like. It's even tomorrow if I have to go to the court for some case, it's intimidating for even me.
Of
someone
course.
who doesn't know the legal system.
Of course.
So
there's no doubt about
forget
it.
it for someone who's doesn't speak English or has not really been acquainted with any of the systems or doesn't have lawyers who can take care of the cases. Can be
yeah.
And
no,
when you leave,
I'm happy about one thing, which I think probably Justice Lalit has been instrumental in. Recently in Maharashtra, I saw there was a concept called Legal Aid Defence Council. Which the NALSA, that is, you see, there's a whole legal services authority which has been put in place to do the legal aid. So, there was a pilot project in some districts where they basically decided that just like you have the AG office, you should have a legal aid office. So you'll have a deputy director legal aid, director legal aid, and you'll have some young lawyers who will be paid 40 to 50,000. Young lawyers, because here now legal aid you have to do 7 years, have 7 years experience. By the time you have 7 years, either you have drowned or you have floated. If you have floated, you don't want to do legal aid anymore. If you're drowned, then there's no question. So the idealistic young lawyers who come in
can actually
do
learn
something, learn and be properly guided and actually give proper legal aid to the prisoners.
And give it a bit of their time and attention and enthusiasm, basically.
Yes. And what I noticed, at least what I noticed in the National Law University, and I don't know what they thought I was recruiting people for, but I was recruiting people for legal aid, which is a very constitutional duty. Legal aid in the sense, see, when I was in Chhattisgarh also, I was in the Chhattisgarh Legal Services Authority of the High Court. And I realized that this is a big problem. We are not paying people to do this, and young lawyers, enthusiastic lawyers are being forced. And now with the increasing, fees of legal education, they have to go in for corporate firms or with senior lawyers or whatever. They are not even going in for litigation. Legal aid to bahut dur ki baat hai, So I'm happy to note that recently they have started. And I think Justice Lalit has been talking about this again and again. Wherever he's going, he's talking about legal aid. And the NALSA had some pilot project in several districts where they had what they called was the Legal Aid Defence Council system, which is basically that, that you actually have good lawyers for the legal aid and you supervise them and do that. So I think now that system is coming to Maharashtra also. So some lawyers may be able to actually apply, and they'll have an infrastructure, an office, a place to get photocopies, get documents. So then you can really give a proper representation to the, even if it's a poor prisoner. Even if it's a poor prisoner. They're illiterate. They don't know the language of the charge sheet. So many of them are Bangladeshis. They don't know, they're illiterate or they know only Bengali. Some of them know only Urdu. Some of them know only Kannada because they're on the on the borders of Karnataka. No, I'm talking about what I saw in Baikala jail.
Okay, in Baikala jail. Okay.
Yeah. And basically, they can't even understand what are the charges against them. Nobody's come and explained it to them.
So they need a lawyer at least to be given that fair chance to represent themselves.
Exactly.
And because the ultimate aim is to punish the guilty. I mean, if you've got the wrong person, it makes no sense to feel happy कि उसको jail डाल दिया.
Did you hear about this co-accused? I mean, this Malcolm X case where after 20 years this person has been released. And from the day one, the other accused has been saying this guy is not involved. Please let him go.
There's so many such cases, but then too much time has lapsed. There's 20 years, 30 years. People come out on terror charges.
Can we give back? Can we give back 20 years of anybody's life?
But so there is this perception that universities में professors सिखा रहे हैं बच्चों को, they're training them to become underground workers or overground workers or whatever. So what were you doing in that 1 year in
National Law School?
What was your who were you recruiting? Where you said you said students for the legal aid for a constitutional post. But what was the nature of your work there?
So I took several courses there. One I shared with, there was a law and poverty course which I shared with another faculty member. in which we talk about the different laws which have been there to address poverty, like Narega and all those kind of laws, which give rights basically, and how they're implemented or not implemented, vagera vagera. Then I did a whole course on social movements and the interface of law and social movements, because that was a very exciting time, 2017. We were talking about how the new Land Acquisition Act 213 came about. So I was telling them, so they would pick up movements, then they would say, acha, okay, from these movements, what were the legal questions which arose? What happened when these movements went to the court? Did the court recognize their issues?
So really looking at government intervention, people's movements.
Yes, and actually what is the role of law and governance and all that, and how do we get people entitlements? See, this whole thing, you give people, certain laws are passed in their favor, okay, labor laws are passed in the favor, forest rights laws are passed, so many SC, ST law is passed. For women, so many laws are passed. So, but the question is, when it comes to that implementation thing, then there has to be a whole process, and there has to be, so it is that nuance, it's that, and unfortunately, until people are able to, bring themselves to notice, and this is where I really feel sad, because I think there has been a huge change in media in this respect, because I think media earlier, you always, yes, you always had a lot of focus on, maybe you had a focus on Bollywood and fashion and corporate and all that, but you also had, the Bharat Dogras and the P. Sainaths and the Siddharth Vardharajans who would go to the rural areas and would go here and would go there, talk about all kinds of things, and that was part of the mainstream media, mainstream journalism.
Times of India. Sainath's main work was on Times of India.
Pamela Philippos. All these people, they had whole pages in which they were talking about rural areas, about issues. Now, to get to these issues, you have to go to, specialized website, Parika, या Article 14, या something. You don't get these things. है ही नहीं कहीं पे, दिखता ही नहीं है. या फिर in depth नहीं हो रहा है, okay, when it becomes too big to be ignored, then 2-4 दिन आएगा, but then
you said you also had a class of CRPF guys.
Oh yes, yeah, that was another thing. I also gave lectures in labor law, and there was one training which I was asked to do of the CRPF officers. And in fact, some CRPF officers came and talked to me very nicely. I was really, the way they sort of demonize us and all that. The CRPF, those young officers actually were, they don't want to be in that situation where they are looked upon in hostility by a local population.
Yeah, of course.
So I remember,
makes their job harder.
Yeah, so I think I had a 2-day, 3-day training with them, and it went very well. And on the first day itself, the officer in charge came and said, do you mind if we videotape this? I said, sure, go ahead. What is it that I'm going to say which would be secret? You're speaking to these are your security forces, I'm speaking to them. And what I spoke was completely out of the law, out of the guidelines. Why the CRPF is sent into certain places where the state police is not able to handle, for example, a riot situation. What are the guidelines which are laid down? What has been the case law in those matters? All those things. And jokingly, I told that young man, I said, you guys need to have a union.
In the forces, it can't work.
But that is where I would say that those people who accuse us of being, not thinking about the forces, not caring about the forces, and being, so, we are the ones who have been continuously saying that the forces require representation, they require a union, okay, don't allow them to go on strike, they require an association, they need to talk about their problems. They're people with mental difficulties. There's more fratricide and suicide than even, it's happening all the time. Why are these young people doing this?
We at least need to address it.
We need to address it.
The system
the moment a chap from BSF talks about khana pani, uska to naukri chala jata hai. And then you demonize him all over the place. Don't do this. You need to have a dialogue with these people. So, in fact, let me tell you, the PUCL Chhattisgarh even held there was a demonstration of police wives and children, police who are posted in the Naxal areas, and the PUCL participated in it because they were being deprived of the special allowance which they're supposed to get in those areas. And so the callousness which the government shows towards these very same people, I'm sorry, I mean, one thing is, that their job is such, that the course of duty is such. But at least as human beings, allow them to associate, allow them to raise their grievances, allow them to represent. What is wrong in that? If you can't have a dialogue with your security forces, who do you have a dialogue with?
And it has to be, I get one aspect of it, that if you, because when you're in a conflict zone, you're in a war zone, everything has to function according to orders. You can't have one person, disobeying orders. This is why it's so serious. So I understand unionizing or strikes and all, of course, can't work, but at least listening to what their problems is in the media to highlight what they go through. More people die of malaria. The camps are terrible. They don't have basic facilities.
And every time journalists have gone, you have many cases where people have appealed and said, please hamari baat batao. Isn't it so?
Of course.
But has it ever come out?
And
it's not been able to come out.
Bring it up because they can't. Because they're in a duty where they can't. So it is the job of a good citizen to raise questions on their behalf.
Yes.
For media and for,
Now,
so the two things I wanted to touch on. One is that ideology. Now, how would you describe
yourself? Well, I would describe myself as a leftist, as a Marxist. I think most people from the trade union background are that. We do believe that the working class has a very important role to play in the formation of a better society. And I think that is what Yogi was trying to do, because he used to say ki jo mazdoor, the worker who can make everything in this room is made by workers. So why can't he create a society? And that the whole idea of having your own school and your own hospital, that's why even when out of those 11 schools 9 were taken over by the government, he still continued to hang on to 2, because he said that we should have the confidence we can run a school.
So two criticisms that come to the left, and I guess also the understanding of left is poor, because everyone's a leftist. There are shades within the left also. Like you said, you're a Marxist. Do you associate with any of the parties, current political parties?
No, I don't.
Okay. But like you had this whole episode with Kavita Krishnan where she had critiqued Stalin and all that, and she got heavily trolled, and then she had to leave. And she said that basically...
Interestingly, she was not trolled by her party. She was trolled by the CPM.
Yeah.
And in fact, the CPIML was very gracious, and they said, please do not troll her. And they stepped in, but yes, they did remove her from her primary membership.
Exactly. So there's this thing of dogma, that you are not, that you have to follow a certain ideology and this is what we believe in and you must follow it. And this is not just with the left, with the right also, that you either you're with us or then drop off. And this is the problem with most ideologies, and where, so I guess my question is for younger people in 2022, can you really live your life so dogmatically to just adhere to one set of ideas? Because even if you're the left, you could have a position which says that, okay, no, corporations are important, they've created jobs. There are aspirations that people have, that everyone may not want to work on the fields, everyone may not want to continue with what their generations of families doing. You want better stuff for your kids. And especially in the context of Adivasis, there's this thing of development hogi ya nahi hogi, factory aayegi ya nahi aayegi. And there's this thing that Adivasis need not be the sole bearers of the burden of preserving a certain ethos or a lifestyle, that they may also have aspirations for their kids to change their lifestyle, to wear jeans, to, buy a phone, get a car, move out of the city, like we all do. So it's a big question, but my thing is that in 2022, can we be so stuck up with,
Look, I think we are coming to a point where the capitalist system is reproducing inequality at a rate which is phenomenal. There was a time when capitalism held a lot of hope.
Yeah.
In fact, capitalism came with the ideas of equality, liberty and fraternity.
And opportunity.
Opportunity, certainly. And it came, but the monopolization, the concentration of economic power that has happened and is happening continuously, and the difference in the inequalities which are happening. You know, the topmost richest guy probably has more than any some poor sub-Saharan country in its entirety has. These are unsustainable. It's not a question of whether I like it or you like it. It will not work. It cannot work forever. Why? Because look, I mean, if I put it in very simplistic terms, and it is a Marxian argument, you produce so that people consume. If people's wages are going to go down, they stop consuming. And then there's going to be recession. And there have been repeated recessions in capitalist history. And now, so what keeps the capitalism afloat is bubbles. Okay? So you had this housing bubble, which happened for some time in the US. And then it burst. Now, the US can afford it, it can go on printing dollars. We can't afford it. हमारा तो अभी कितना हो गया 81 rupees
81
yeah 81.
I think last was 81
yeah
so but my thing is that okay
so what I'm saying is that I don't think this is a question of dogma. I think this is a question of looking scientifically at the capitalist system, that it is now not in a position to give simple levels of humane. I mean, I think we saw that when we saw people walking in the lockdown. 1 week into the lockdown, they could not stay there because they did not have a ghar, they did not have a bank balance.
And most people who worked with them just abandoned them. There was
yes.
So they felt very betrayed also for the people.
Yes, but it was not a small number of people. Yeah. According to the parliament figures, it was 1,14,000 people who walked. And usually those are underestimates. So, 93% of our population is informal labor, which does not have the security guard downstairs. He's paid 8,000 rupees for a 12-hour duty. I asked him, you're a young man from Bihar, how do you survive? He says, I do 8,000 duty in the night also. I said, when do you sleep? He said, I don't sleep. I go there, Juhu mein 8 ghanta, Juhu mein 12 ghanta, or either society mein. And then, out of that 16,000, he sends 10,000 home. And he is newly married, he can't bring his wife and children here. And then he says, then suddenly he disappears. I said, what happened? He says, I have not been paid for 2 months. This is the situation in which you're doing away with labor laws. I mean...
So, but my question is that, okay, I get that there are issues with it and there are serious issues. It's been severe exploitation, and I guess the problem was also lack of accountability. Like, you guys stepped in because you knew the law, so you could fight something basic like wages. Now that's a very basic fight.
Yeah, but we didn't win it. We lost one leader. We lost. I mean, police firing missed. 16 people were killed,
but
and those guys are still out of job after 30 years.
But so I get that. But I'm saying is the solution then to fix the system with more and more people like you, more and more people who want accountability from different areas.
Yes.
Because
yes.
I also don't see the point of replacing it, because it seems to be the best that I also don't want a situation where the state is controlling everything. You don't want to go back to that era.
See, I think for us, one beautiful example is the farmers' movement. There were 28 organizations. What you're saying, dogma. They were from all ideologies. They were Gandhians, they were like people from the CPM, they were, left of center, they were, they were all kinds. Centrist parties, they were, everybody was there. And the BKUs, all the different groups of the BKUs. And despite ideological differences, they had a common agenda. They had staying power. They could unite the entire village. They could unite the entire agrarian society, because there was no other option. And with that, they have tried. So people have to reclaim certain rights. Like, I think there's some basic rights. Right to housing is basic. In Bombay, you're going to throw away people. This flat is going to be redeveloped soon. When it's redeveloped, the person who owns this flat will get a 4-bedroom house and something and some brokerage and whatnot, and of course the builder will make lots of money. But when a slum is displaced, why don't you at least give them a decent house? Yeah, I mean, what you're giving them is like, why are you so stingy with the displacees? I'll tell you, initially when the coal mines came in Chhattisgarh, people didn't oppose much. Why? Because even if they gave 10 decimals of land, 10 decimals is like you understand, 1/10 of an acre.
Yeah.
10 decimals of land to the mining company. They would be given one permanent post. Okay. Today, so many people together have to make itna acre, then only one of them will get post, and that also will be a contractual post, not a permanent post.
So the problem is really
You are not.
lack of negotiating power.
Absolutely not.
like that
I mean,
is the
Bhilai
simple
steel
thing.
plant, when Bhilai steel plant was made, lots of land was taken over for the mines, but 96,000 permanent jobs were created. And those 96,000 people, it's their children who is the middle class of Chhattisgarh today.
Okay.
You created a middle class, but after this, these workers, their children,
So the problem
see any
per se is not a
future.
mine coming up or not jobs being created. Of course, why would you have a problem with jobs? But not the fact that there's a mining company that's come in to do work which is ultimately going to help for development, but the fact that people engaged within that project, there has to be a fair exchange. So
yes,
if I'm going
and you
take
have to
your
listen
land-
to them when they
Yeah.
say, okay, please use this barren land, don't take away our fertile land. Or when they say, that is very ghana forest where we need that. Why don't you take this land? Or there has to be a negotiation. There has to be an understanding that let us remember, even today, lots of people like. Okay, government tries to make them dependent on them by giving some 2,000 rupees and 4,000 rupees in their account, and maybe they'll win elections with that. All the best to them. But there are people who are still proud of being part of the economy. They do their thing. In fact, this is one of the biggest difference between the Adivasis and Dalit movements. Dalit movements are very clear that they want their share. Whereas the Adivasi says, look here, leave us alone. We don't want anything from you, but just leave us alone. So basically, they are trying to, they are proud of their thing. You have to negotiate that livelihood.
So basically come in with a little bit of humility. If you want their land and if you want to work there, the least you can do is just give them the respect of being heard and not feel cheated that your land's gone away and you have no prospects for your kids.
Exactly.
So that is the central fight, I'm guessing.
And when you give jobs, give permanent jobs, not contractual jobs. Give jobs with a pension. अभी तो आप आर्मी में भी pension नहीं देने को तैयार हो तो बाकी लोगों को तो छोड़ दो. And tell me one thing. I mean, today they are saying that we are so unhappy with we disrespect CRPF, etc., etc. What kind of disrespect is this? That you're going to recruit young people for the army and then after 4 years going to say no pension to them. You're sending them out with their life on a line.
Yeah, and one of the few attractions to army is also
Yes.
that the fact that the army really takes care of you in
Yes.
terms of pension, healthcare. Those are the huge
Yes,
things
they
that kind of
take care of the families, they
Yeah.
give them,
And there's a lot
That's
of
the
solidarity
attraction.
precisely because of that within the army that you
Yes.
see there's a sense of being taken care of by the institution
Yes,
that
and
you
I as
give
far
your
as
life
I know,
for.
many retired people have actually objected.
That's a
To
huge
these
difference.
schemes.
Now, we've taken a lot of your time, but I'm really amazed at your energy and the fact that you are able to laugh and still so passionately talk about the movement, about the, how you started off and how workers write, which is really amazing. It's a specific sign of a person who can do this after having gone to jail and knowing that you may again be back.
Oh yes.
So what is it? Is it just वो क्या कहते हैं वो अंदर से एक screw आपका
ढीला है.
ढीला तो मैं I won't give that disclosure, but screw नहीं बोल सकते, but there's a
एक
क्या
कीड़ा
कहते हैं?
है.
Engineering अच्छा कीड़ा है.
जिनको ये कीड़ा लग जाता है ना.
अलग है बिल्कुल. ये मतलब do you think sometimes रात को कि dude what am I doing, like maybe I should like
Take it easy.
or take it easy, not talk, or that the fact that, or when you look back at your life you also think that has it been worth it to then do so much, the way you've worked, taught yourself law, left a cushy, I mean you could have, after IIT Kanpur you would have the world.
Yeah.
As you could have just gone anywhere, you could have led an amazing, cushy, beautiful academic life, but you chose this, and then after all of this you're essentially then seeing yourself also being demonized, that you're anti-national hai, ye hai, Naxal hai, violence ke hai, whatever, like people, like you said in the jail, people were wondering ki daku aa gayi hai. So two questions. One is the reflection, but do you think like, what did I get at the end of all of this? And this wiring of yours.
Yeah.
How do you assess your own wiring?
There's a fundamental problem in my wiring, which is that, say at a very young age, I got involved with the Chhattisgarh Mind Shramik Sangh, Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha at the age of 25, and I saw that organization. And you see, one thing you must realize, see, for us, for a middle class person, for a professional, we have an individual identity and we have a lot of social capital. You're absolutely right. I mean, of course, now with the stigma, nobody will appoint me anywhere. But, you know, otherwise one could have access to so many things. And but for a worker, the organization is his only identity, his or her only identity.
Where the person is working.
No, the union.
The union.
The union is the only one which raises his voice. On my door, you would have seen that red and green. That's the flag of Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha.
Okay.
If you go to any julus of Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha, somewhere or the other they have got that red and green. You know, being a part, they know that individually they cannot win. They cannot win. It's totally a collective process. And when you've seen that collective process at very close quarters, you've seen how much people have struggled, and it's really like that, you know, Sisyphus rolling the stone and it's coming back, and rolling the stone and it's coming. That is the reality of the working people. We are so fortunate, Manisha. We are even in this situation, I am fortunate. So, you know, when I went to jail, I saw people who were so much more miserable than me. They didn't know why they were there. They had no family out there caring for them. They didn't have lawyers to care for them. No question of solidarity. And there are people, what were they in for? PETA cases, sex workers. Arey yaar, what brought them to sex work? How did they come there? वो human trafficking कैसे हुआ? कैसे नहीं हुआ? Your Bangladeshis don't commit any crime. They just come across the border to work. That's all. And they're working their asses off. And all their paisa is with that thekedar who just disappears when they're arrested. What is this, yeah? So, I mean, people are so much more miserable. So, I think there's a long way to go.
So, but that keeps you going, the fact that you see around yourself.
Yes.
And you just can't kind of control yourself from
well, still people are writing me letters from the jail. Auntie, please mera ye case pata laga do. Please mera ye vakil se baat kara do and all that. And I try to do what I can. I can't do very much.
So that gives you a rush, being able to be of help to people.
It not only gives me a rush, I don't know how to live without it. I mean, I don't have any individual ambition like where am I supposed to go. I was always there with them and I can only move when they move. The only thing, like if you're going to say, do you regret anything? I regret that all these things have made my daughter unhappy many times. They've given her a lot of this thing. I wish that I could compensate that, and I wish that I could, you know.
Well, essentially the 1 year when you came back from Chhattisgarh to work in Delhi, it was for your daughter, basically.
Yeah,
that you were going to lead actually a non-confrontational teaching, like the academic life that I was talking about.
Academic life.
Be a good teacher and just be in that academic space, give lectures and talk. That was supposed to be actually your downtime.
Yeah.
And then work towards making sure that your daughter. But then life had other plans to you. How do you spend your day now in work?
Well, I do some research on labor. I particularly these new labor codes and all that, and the alarming number of accidents and all that is happening. So, just trying to figure out, repeal of so many laws, what is it going to mean for safety, and because many of those laws and amendments were brought after the Bhopal gas disaster. So, we come back to 1984 again. Then I also sit in a senior advocate's office. So, I try to help out as much as I can with some drafting and other things.
Drafting. So, you're still lawyering?
Yes, I mean not in a very active way.
Can't, but basically.
Yes, I can. I mean that's my profession, and I can. I'm not taking up very I would like to concentrate on labor courts and because I really think those are the places where now with the laws changing, we really need to put in a lot of effort as labor lawyers to make sure that the hard-won rights of people are not just taken away by the change in the laws.
What would you say to young kids who want to become activists or, join, like you said, movements? I mean, like you said, we were just talking off camera when camera people were taking a rest, that you were saying that there's been a generation shift. Trade unions, हमारे time पे सिर्फ trade union नहीं होता था. There were no NGOs. So हमें grassroots में काम करना है, तो you have to go to a trade union. There were no NGOs.
Yeah, trade union or some other movement, like many people of my age went to the Narmada Bachao Andolan. some of us went to this, some of us went to, you know, the Bhopal gas pidit.
Yeah.
Mahila Udyog Sangathan, some of us went to the, you know, so.
But then there was this NGOification.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, and then now we're at this point where even NGOs are being questioned. But, you know, there are young people who want to sort of work with people's movement or people's issues. What would your advice be to them? Because it's also seen as a very glamorous, you know, for some it may also be like this really glamorous sort of a position.
Well, glamorous
I mean,
is
not
probably
glamorous,
not the word.
maybe the wrong word, but this position where
Yeah,
you're kind
yeah.
of better than everyone else because you're helping people out. So there's this chip on your shoulder and there's
Yeah,
this, you
yeah.
know,
No,
that can
you
be
should-
that attraction.
Yeah. That one should never have. See, the thing is, what I feel that, you know, sometimes we miss, you know, people are suffering and people are struggling everywhere. Make small organizations, some it's Basti organization, they're fighting against demolition, some places they, you know, trade union movements, some places they're, you know, farmers movements, people are agitating for Narega payments, Adivasis are agitating about cutting of the trees. I mean, in a place like Silgair in Bastar, for 1 year one dharna has been going on that, you know, Gram Sabha permission needs to be taken. So their movements are going on everywhere. If you're young people, as professionals, as good professionals, good lawyer, good journalist, good doctor, good teacher, I mean, there's so many ways that one can serve and amplify movements. I think that is our hope. Serving and amplifying movements, you know, because it's like a new freedom struggle. We have to let, you know, if you think about the freedom struggle which got rid of the British, I know that the main current was of you know, Gandhiji's movement and International Congress, but it was not the only movement. There were many movements going on. There was the trade union movement, there were the, you know, there was Subhash Chandra Bose INA, and there was so many things happening. So there are many movements happening today, and
So lend your support as a professional, you're saying that if you're
yes,
a lawyer,
yes.
then
If you're a lawyer, okay, you do eight cases commercially, do 2 cases for poor people who, you know, do it for a slum eviction, or do it for, you know, people who come to you. Arrange that in your system of your firm or whatever it is. If you're a journalist, I mean, find a space in which you can write about it. If you're a filmmaker, I mean, okay, I mean.
But full-time activism, full-time like you.
See, the problem
like you joined
the problem for full-time activism, you have to be prepared for a very hard life. Because now no NGO is going to support you to do full-time activism. Okay. No NGO.
So there's no money.
There's no money.
Well, money to even
movements don't have money. Trade unions don't have money. इतना चंदा नहीं है कि वो यूनियन के लिए एक लॉयर ले सकें. You know, people's movements don't have resources anymore, and the you know, the rules of the government, particularly the FCRA rules, etc., and ensuring that smaller NGOs which are actually doing the grassroots work will not get funding from bigger NGOs to actually do work with people. So full-time activism is something which you should be prepared to do if, like, you're ready to go for vanvas.
Like you.
Yeah, I did it a very long time ago, and let me tell you, I enjoyed a lot of it. I got so much love and affection from the workers of Dalli Rajara, of Bhilai. I mean, I couldn't, I mean, on Diwali days, like, my stomach used to go haywire because so many people would invite me for, you know, lunch and dinner that I would have to go to 15 houses to have Diwali, you know, food. So much love and affection. So much love and affection.
Did anyone come to meet you in jail?
See, jail they were not allowed to. Only, but they came to the Pune court. They came to the Pune court many times, and in fact, I had to speak to the judge once because when they would come to the Pune court, I mean, the sort of middle class people and the, you know, sort of people who looked more respectable, etc. Unko to the police would not do anything, but this, you know, very slightly working class looking and slightly, you know, garib looking people, they would question them, interrogate them after, you know, who are you, what do you, show your identity. It's an open court, for God's sake. And they're coming just to see me. So finally I had to go and tell the judge that, you know, what is this? I mean, this is the only family I have. and you can't do this. So people did come. People did come. They still, they still keep joking with me. Didi, आप छोटे जेल में से निकल के बड़े जेल में आ गए. You're not come to Chhattisgarh yet.
Oh yeah, you miss Chhattisgarh?
Oh, a lot.
You hope to go back?
Oh yes, I hope so. Yeah, I would like to go back.
Great.
I'm 60 now. I won't be able to do much work, but at least.
But that's home for you.
That's home for me.
That's where you belong.
That's where I belong. That's where I belong.
Great. Thank you so much for taking out so much time. So that it's been really, really nice talking to you, and you've been very generous with your time.
I have a lot of that. Not to worry.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.